What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another YouTube video. In this video, we are going to be creating a LinkedIn ads account in 2024. This is going to be all about start to finish, how to set up a campaign inside of LinkedIn ads. A lot of things have changed since 2023. And so this video is kind of going over all of those new things and just creating a campaign from scratch for your LinkedIn ads campaign manager. So I'm going to dive right in. Now, we actually have the LinkedIn Campaign Manager set up here, but if you didn't know how to access that, all you need to do is actually go to this tab up here on your LinkedIn profile and select For Business, and then you would select Advertise. Now, at this point, it's going to ask you to, if you've never made an account before, if you've never been invited to one, then you're not going to have anything here, and it's going to ask you to create an account. That's what we're going to do real quick is we're going to create a fresh account. It's just going to be called Ian's ad account. And we're actually going to associate it with a LinkedIn page. This is going to be our optimized page. So we're going to say optimize your marketing. And we're going to associate this with optimize your marketing. We're going to click save. So now we have a completely brand new account. And there's a lot of stuff to look at here. You have your campaign groups, your campaigns, you have your ads. Obviously, this is a completely new account, so there's nothing in here. And we do have other things as well. We have a plan tab, which has audiences and brand safety, which generally speaking, you don't have to worry about the brand safety tab. Audiences is really the most important one here. And then you have your advertise tag or tab, which is essentially where you're going to be creating your campaigns. You have test, which is where you can run A/B tests. You have analyze, which is your insight tag, your conversion tracking, website actions, recommendations, which generally speaking doesn't really help too much in my experience, but alas. And then your assets, which is like lead gen forms, any landing pages that are created, asset history, and conversations. Other things would be your account settings, which is really where you add your billing information. So where we're going to get started is actually under Analyze, and we're going to show what you would need to do first. So before you do anything, I always recommend this, is to create an insight tag and install this on your website. Now, in this video, we are not going to be installing this on the website, but I'm going to show you what the process would look like. So all you have to do, as you can see, is click this insight tag, say agree and create. And I don't know why my thing is bugging with, okay, now these are gone, nice. Okay, so what you will do is you can install the tag yourself, and or I guess if you have a developer, then you can send it to a developer, or if you're using Google Tag Manager, which we do use Google Tag Manager, then that's what we would do. So I'm not going to show you how to do this. This is going to be another video on conversion tracking and paid media accounts. So if you want to see that kind of video, check the description or the comments, and or just follow our channel for more content, because we will be creating a video in the future for that. But this is very simple. You would simply just go into Google Tag Manager, select create a new tag, and then you would look for LinkedIn Insight and then place this partner ID. And then you would just verify that your tag has been installed on your website, and then you'd be good to go. But this Insight tag is incredibly important because you need to be able to retarget these folks on your website. If you do not have this tag installed, then you're unable to do retargeting, which is absolutely crucial if you want to have successful LinkedIn ads campaigns. So that's the first place that I would recommend. The second place, after you've done the LinkedIn Insight tag, is to create conversions. Now, again, as I mentioned, we do not have, this is not going to be a video where we are creating these conversions. However, I'm going to talk through them really quickly. So an insight tag conversion would essentially be like, for the example, is a thank you page visit. And we would assign a value to that thank you page. So for example, if someone goes to schedule a demo on your website for your software or for your company, and you guys have an average customer value that takes into account qualification rates of this lead becoming a qualified lead and then becoming a sales qualified and an opportunity and then actual revenue. If you have a value for that, then you should place that in here. And if you don't have that value, it's still good to assign a value to this. Just keep in mind that the higher the value is, the more the ad account will optimize around that conversion. The the lower it is, the less important. And it's all relative. So if you assign this $1 and then you assign another value 2, then that 2 value is twice as important as this 1. But a lot of people like to do like 100 and or 1,000 and kind of go from there because they have a good understanding of what their average customer value is. And I recommend, and we would basically walk through that as a client. If you were one of our clients, we would be walking through that with you to kind of understand what that means for your business. Then the last thing here is, if you're doing a thank you page conversion, you have a conversion value. The last thing I'd like to just touch upon is that there are different attribution models, and as of the recording of this video in 2024, then there is each campaign and last touch attribution models. They'll probably add different ones in the future, but for now there are 2. I would recommend creating both of them because it does not hurt to add both of these to your campaigns. It just gives you a little extra data so you know exactly what is going on, what is working, and what campaigns are attributing or contributing, I should say, to conversions. Now, again, we're going to be talking more about this in a future video, so be sure to subscribe if you are interested in that. Now, the next part I like to go to is audiences. So as you can see, we haven't even really talked about creating a campaign yet, but these are all crucial things that you need to do before you actually create your campaigns. Otherwise, you will be missing out on some opportunities to optimize your ad account, and that's what this is all about, is creating optimized LinkedIn ads in 2024. So what you need to do is create audiences. So once you have that LinkedIn Insight tag installed on your website, you're able to create matched audiences specifically for your website. So I would recommend creating these audiences. So you'd come in here, you'd select website, and then you would choose audiences in the 90, 60, and 30-day range. You can do 14, you can do 180, it does not matter, but 90, 60, 30, generally speaking, those are going to be the audiences you're going to use most. And I just like to name these like website visitors 90 days. And then unfortunately, there's no easy way to create all 3 of these audiences at once right now inside of LinkedIn. You would actually have to do this each time, and you're going to want to place your website in here. So for our example, it would just be optimize this website. Go grab that real fast. And you would just say starts with. And if we want this to capture every single page on the website, then we just say starts with. But if we wanted this to capture a very specific page, perhaps if we had a pricing page or if we had a book a demo page and we wanted to have different kinds of variations for these website audiences, perhaps there's more high intent, or there is higher intent if someone visits the pricing page versus if they just visit a blog page. So we could segment these audiences down. And again, in a future video when we're talking about creating retargeting ad campaigns from scratch, then we would probably cover that and kind of walk through that a little bit more. But for now, we're mostly just creating a top of funnel cold audience campaign, and for that reason we will not be covering this. But again, you would want to create the matched audiences for your website. You'd want to come back in here and create matched audiences for your lead gen campaigns, your document campaigns, your single image campaigns, your company page. You'd want to go through and do that for everything, because if you don't do that ahead of time and you spend money on ads, you can't actually backtrack. You can't reverse the order of creating these audiences after the campaign is already run. It's one of the unfortunate side effects of LinkedIn, is you have to create these before the campaigns actually run. So with that out of the way, let's get into the advertise panel. We're going to be walking through a very basic example, but first let's structure our campaign in a way that makes sense. So whenever we create LinkedIn ad campaigns for our clients, we always start at the campaign group level and we create 3 different campaign groups. So I'm going to create one here real quick, and this is going to be a awareness cold layer campaign group. I'm not going to select a group objective. I think that is not a smart way to organize your account, because then you are unable to select other objectives in that group. So personally speaking, I turn this off, and then you just want to say run continuously from the start date. You're going to say create. And so for all intents and purposes for this video, we will only be creating campaigns in the awareness layer, the cold layer. But to show you how we segment the rest of this, we'd create a consideration layer, retargeting, turn this off, and then again create this. And last is we would create this last campaign group, and this would be a high intent bottom of funnel messaging, and again turn that off and create. The reason for this is that each one of these, one, can be segmented based off of its performance, and two is they're each unique kinds of messages that we are going to have in the marketing funnel. So the messaging and the content that we have in the awareness stage is going to be fundamentally different from the messaging and the content in the consideration layer, and so on for the high intent layer, which is bottom of funnel messaging. So what that could look like is we would have ebooks, white papers, thought leadership content, like really compelling blog posts or sales enablement kinds of content in the awareness layer, introducing the client's business or the solution. And in the consideration layer, we're going to have case studies and testimonials and more product marketing related messaging and imagery to kind of address objections and remind people that have interacted with our thought leadership content that, hey, we actually have a solution that solves those problems that our cold layer kind of introduces and makes our audience problem aware. Now that they're problem aware, they're looking for a solution, and we're retargeting to them with our solution. And then the bottom of funnel is more, I would say, programmatic display advertising, where we're doing text ads and spotlight ads and ads that kind of just are extremely cheap, and they show up on the right hand side of LinkedIn ads account or LinkedIn accounts. So for example, these kinds of ads would look like these ones and these ones. These are going to be ads. These are the promoted ads. These ones are actually just recommendations from organic, but these are going to be actually the promoted ads, and those are our high intent ads. So they're just keeping us top of mind, even as these people are still kind of getting hit with these retargeting ads. We are going to run those high intent layer ads as well. So let's dive into the awareness layer. What would we do first? Well, starting out, we would create a campaign. And inside of this campaign, we are just going to click next here. This is going to give us like I wouldn't recommend doing this quick thing. Do the advanced. Quick is not going to give you very many optimization opportunities at all. So we're going to click next. And so this is where your piece of content that you're promoting comes into play. So if you're promoting an ebook or a white paper or any sort of long form content, which by the way, we would 100% recommend for our clients to promote those kinds of things in this awareness cold layer in the first quarter or so of advertising. We highly recommend thought leadership content to build an audience that becomes problem aware. And the way to do that is through lead generation campaigns or through website visit campaigns. We don't really recommend this website conversions. It's just too, I always say this when we're talking to clients, is we really don't like to go for the jugular with our LinkedIn ads campaigns. So we're not asking people necessarily to sign up for a demo. We're not doing that until at least the retargeting layer or the bottom of funnel messaging layer. So this website conversions one, we wouldn't want to optimize for conversions when our goal for this awareness and cold layer is to drive interactions with our brand and position thought leadership content in front of client or prospects that can start to view us as a trusted vendor. And so we would create lead generation or website visits. Now, if you select lead generation, you're going to be locked in down here when it comes to ad format. You will be locked into the lead generation ads. If you select website visits, you can still choose, but I believe if you do click the lead gen format down here, it will swap your campaign objective to lead gen. So we're going to select website visits for this example. But again, I would recommend these two. I don't really use any of these other ones whenever we're creating highly optimized LinkedIn ads campaigns. So we create website visits, and before I do anything else, I actually really like to update the campaign name. And usually the way I do this is I do the objective, which would be website visits. I do the audience, which we could just use an example that I used recently, which would be like real estate agents. So if we were going after real estate agents, then I would select that here. And then last is I just put the bidding strategy, which we always use manual bidding, by the way, but we do test maximum delivery at the same time. Usually with our clients, it's just one of the first A/B tests we run at the campaign level. So, but we'll put manual bid here for now. And I like to do that just because it makes it extremely easy for me to segment inside of my campaign group what I've tested already. And so the one last thing you could put in here is the kind of ad format. So you could say like carousel, or you could say document, or you could say a lot of other things. But for all intents and purposes, we're just going to keep this at manual bid. And I'm going to scroll down. So at this point, there's a couple things that I want you to pay attention to. Number one is that if your target audience is not in the United States, or they need to be in specific areas of the United States, I would recommend, updating that. So not only, let's just say Georgia, we wanted people to be in Georgia in the United States. Remember that this locations tab is going to target people that are recent or permanent location. I like to say permanent location, especially if you have if your location is very important, changing that to permanent is very important. This is defaulted to recent, which is not going to help you. In fact, this could get people that are in like Washington State or California if they're visiting Georgia for a conference, and maybe they're just not in your territory. So it's really important to change this to the default, and LinkedIn is able to steal money from you essentially if you don't change that. Is really the way it works. So it's always important to change that in the audience tab. Now, if you need to exclude locations, obviously exclude these locations. And it's funny because when you exclude locations, it is defaulted to permanent, but in the include locations, it's defaulted to recent or permanent. So again, just keep in mind, LinkedIn is trying to take your money whenever you do this. If you don't have an ad agency to help you, or if you're not watching a tutorial like this to kind of help you set up optimized campaigns, then you are going to, have your ROI kind of take a hit just because you don't have all that time, you don't have all that experience to kind of come in here and create the amazing campaigns that an agency would do, or at least a qualified agency would do. So now let's get into the next part here, which, you're going to want to actually add some properties here. So you're going to click narrow. Now, when you click narrow, you have opportunities. You have audiences, which we don't really mess with this unless you have a list. And generally speaking, actually, whenever we work with a client, especially someone new, we always try to develop a list of ideal customer prospects. And we will throw those in here as a list upload inside of the LinkedIn Ads Manager. From there, we can create lookalikes or predictive audiences, but they've actually just sunset lookalikes. And so you actually really can't create those anymore, but they have created predictive audiences now. So the way that would work is you would have a list of maybe 500 people. You would upload that into LinkedIn Ads. It would take a day or two to populate, to match all of those people. And then what you would do is create a predictive audience from that 500 people list. And this predictive audience could be larger or even smaller, depending on what you want it to be. But generally speaking, we really like to keep our audience size very refined. Less than 10,000 is awesome. Smaller is even better. And generally speaking, that's going to be the case. So anyway, that's what this audiences tab would be, is you would just usually place a list upload in here or create a predictive audience. You wouldn't get into retargeting until your retargeting layer, so we're not going to touch upon that here. But for most cases, you'll have a list, and then you'll want to use LinkedIn's firmographic abilities to kind of segment that list even further down. So I wouldn't really come into necessarily like the companies tab. However, you can segment a list based off of the industries, but if you've already kind of compiled a list, then you already kind of have your industry situated. Company size, again, company revenue, again, you would have that kind of situated from your list. So company is not necessarily the best thing to narrow, but it doesn't necessarily hurt to throw on. But I think what is a better place is to come into job experience. Now, this is where you can really start to segment a list. You can have job functions where perhaps you're only going after people that would be working in marketing. So if you only were trying to go after people that work in marketing, then as you'll see, now we don't have a list in here, but as you can see, 120,000 people, that's way down from the 6.9 that was there a second ago. So whenever we do this, you're able to select job functions. We like to do functions. You could also do job titles, and you could do like CXO, that would be like CEO, CFO, etc., just decision makers. So again, it all comes down to that persona you're trying to target, but you can target functions, you can target job titles, you can target based off of skills, which is hit or miss. Generally speaking, I wouldn't recommend that one, but it's worth a test, especially if you're working with an advertising agency. It's worth a test. And then years of experience. This is usually something that you have already segmented for inside of your prospected list, so I wouldn't necessarily recommend that one. One cool thing, if you find that you have imported your list, your predictive list, let's say, and you've added the functions and you still have a target audience that's above 50,000, one cool thing you can do is to come into the member groups and select groups that are related to the ICP you're trying to go after. So if, for example, we have real estate agents, if we wanted to go after real estate agents, then we would just select a lot of these groups and we'd be able to then, really narrow our audience down. Now, this is actually a good sign. Whenever I run LinkedIn ads, I never want this to be higher than 50,000. LinkedIn wants us to have optimal campaign delivery and engagement, aka they want us to spend money consistently every single day. Whereas when I run ads for my clients, I like to spend money on our ICP. If our ICP is less active on a certain day or time frame, then I don't want to spend money on that day. Whereas if our ICP is very active on a day, I want to spend money on that day to make sure that they are seeing our ads. And so that's kind of how I like to approach LinkedIn ads. Don't let this, this kind of warning, usually in advertising platforms, in my experience, if you're getting a warning that's like this, that says, hey, have a larger target audience size, usually that's a good thing. And so I would try to keep that. Now we've kind of walked through this. You can do ORs. So if I were to select these member groups and also come in here perhaps and select, let's just say job functions, and I'd say business development. Let's just select that. Now notice how it says OR here. You can actually do an and, so they have to be in these groups and in business development, and you can see that that audience size has dropped significantly. So that's kind of the point here, is to try to narrow this down to a very small number that you can identify as your target ICP. When I say target ICP, I mean people that can actually buy your service or software, or client's service or software. One of the last things we do here is to turn this enable audience expansion off. Again, you're going to get a notification down here that says, like, by turning this off, you are going to miss 50% of your clicks. Just don't worry about that. This has just been proven time and time again to be wasted ad spend. Another way for LinkedIn to use your ad spend on platforms that are way less intent, or show them to people that are not in your ICP. So just don't use that. One of the last things here before we finish up is ad formats. So you have different ad formats, and I'm going to walk through each one of these briefly and describe which part of the funnel they would be used. Single image, carousel, video, and document are all going to be ads that you can use in the top of funnel. I don't really use message ads too much. I generally don't like them as much because I think you're not nurturing your prospects. However, there are edge cases where you will use them. Same would be said with conversation ads too, and event ads as well. That's if you're doing any sort of webinar marketing, then maybe that makes sense. But that's for larger, usually Fortune 500 companies are going to be interested in that. For smaller companies, you're going to be using single image ads, carousel ads, video ads, and document ads in your cold layer. You would use text and spotlight ads in your bottom of funnel. And again, you can use single image ads and carousel ads and even document ads and video ads in your retargeting layer as well. It's just the message and the creative is going to be different. So you're not going to be asking for a demo in the cold layer, but in your retargeting layer, perhaps you will be. Placements, I always turn this off. LinkedIn Audience Network is third-party publishers, but again, they're very low-intent platforms. And this, again, like I said, usually when you get a notification like this, it's actually a good thing. You're missing out on an estimated 53% more clicks. But the reason for those clicks is usually, have you ever been on an app and you're trying to get off the app and you accidentally click the ad? That's basically what these trusted, quote unquote, trusted third party publishers would be. Do not publish your ads here. It's wasted ad spend. Last, you would just select your daily budget. Again, if you had $1,000 to spend for a month, then you can spend roughly $30 a day. Schedule. I like to just choose run campaign continuously because the way we create our campaigns is we iteratively test a new creative with our campaigns every single couple weeks and or months, depending on how low or high the budget is. But by doing that, we're able to continue to improve campaign performance and increase click-through rate because we're finding winning creative over and over. And our creative's not getting stale. Under bidding strategy, we like to select manual bidding. Maximum delivery is fine, but we find that this can give you wildly different cost per clicks. Whereas if you do manual bidding, you can control your cost per click, and that will help keep your click-through rate in check, but also your cost per click in check. And so it's basically, it gives you a range of what you should be bidding on. It's going to give us this $17.85 bid range. That's pretty high. Personally, I don't know about you, but I don't like to spend that much money on a click. Even $12.56 is relatively high. The way we would optimize this campaign is we would mess around with the campaign audience a little bit to make sure that this isn't as, I guess you could say, targeted. We'd probably want to open this up a little bit, but let's just say you are targeting someone or a very small group of people, and it is $12.56 at the starting range. Then we would start out at $12.56, and we would enable bid adjustment for high value clicks, but we would test this because sometimes this again will give you a similar result to maximum delivery. I think LinkedIn's starting to realize that in 2024, more advertisers are selecting manual bidding, and as a result, they're missing out on some of the money that they could easily squeeze out of ad accounts from maximum delivery, which is their automated way to bid. So by adding the enable bid adjustment for higher value clicks is a way for them to kind of do that. So we always test this. I don't think it's necessarily that bad, but it's always worth testing with new accounts. Last is conversion tracking. As we mentioned, we'd have those two goals that we would like to throw into our ad account, and we would put those here, and so we would select them here. Now, I'm going to click next. It's going to ask us to save. This is where we would create ad creative, and in this video, we are not going to be creating ad creative. I'm actually going to have a separate video on my YouTube channel where we create high-performing LinkedIn ads specifically that are single image, that are ebooks, that are white paper, document ads. We're going to create that in the future. But what I can tell you real quick is when you create a new ad, you're going to have some options here. I like to make a nomenclature with my ads, and generally speaking, I do a number. So I do 1, and you can put A's. As you can see, I've done this in the past. We do A, B, whatever. But what I've started to do more recently is I'll just say like ebook. And if we've done multiple ebooks in the account, or if this is just the first one, then I'll just say ebook 1. And what is nice, or I'll just say A, perhaps, something like that. And the reason for this is whenever you are creating an ad, it's going to give you opportunities to place multiple different images in here. And when you're creating a LinkedIn ad, you have different options for that ad format. You have 1080 by 1080, 1080 by 1920, 1920 by 1080. And so if you upload all 3 of those, it will create 3 different versions of your ad. And that's because you have desktop ads and mobile feed ads. And you also have the square version that can show up on either. And so by doing that, you'll have ads that basically come out in your campaign manager that'll have like an _1 or 2 or 3. And by doing that, I'm able to segment and or quickly view which ads are mobile or desktop or both. And so, like I said, we're not going to be covering introductory text, but you would select a short and sweet introductory text that would go in here. You would have a destination URL. Again, that destination URL, I would like to have UTMs attached to it so that I can track that source inside of my CRM. And then last is a headline, a description, and a call to action. And we would save the ad, and the ad would show up in our feed. So I'm just not going to save this, but it would show up here where we can browse, and then we would just simply say save and exit, and we would publish the campaign. But for all intents and purposes, once that ad is staged and you have multiple versions, you have the desktop, the mobile, the square, then your ad, and obviously you've imported your LinkedIn Insight tag. One last thing I'd like to do, again, I mentioned this briefly, but I want to hammer it home, is you'd come in here and you would actually create a matched audience for your single image ad that we just created. And again, you'd have to select this. So as you create more campaigns, you'll have to come back in here and select your campaigns that you want to be included in your retargeting single image ad audience. So I would just label this single image 90 days. And this is going to be retargeting. And this is any interactions. You can also do the ones that, people who perform chargeable clicks on your ad, you can do that as well. But I like to just kind of keep it at interactions, because if you do this chargeable clicks one, then you're really segmenting your ads down, and it's really hard to get a retargeting audience created relatively quickly. So I like to do interactions. And that's just people that maybe like swipe over the ad or like look at different pages, but they don't necessarily click. So that's kind of the point. And then we just hit agree and create. And we would do that for all of our single image ads, all of our lead gen ads, etc., etc. Already covered that, but just wanted to kind of make it clear. Last is you could come in here and create a test, and you could create an A/B test. And I generally don't do this, but you can do it from the ad level or the audience level or the placement level. I like to actually create the A/B test myself by simply duplicating the campaign, splitting the ad spend, and making sure that it's the only 2 campaigns running in there at one time. And then when I do that, I also maintain the same creative, the same copywriting. That way it is a true A/B test in all intents and purposes. And then we use statistical significance testing on our key results to make sure and see which ones actually perform the best. But with that, I'm going to close by saying that is how you create LinkedIn ads that are optimized in 2024. I know we didn't cover the conversion tracking or the insight tag or creating the actual creative itself. Those are going to be future videos, but hopefully you found this video useful. And if you did, be sure to hit a like, subscribe for more content. And with that being said, I hope to see you around on our LinkedIn and YouTube videos in the future. Take care. Have a great day.